Welcome everybody to Esports Weekly here on June 18th, 2018. My name is Latigris, here to bring you all you need to know in the Paladins world, and of course, joined by none other than Pretty Hair and Gormizer. How are you fellas doing?
Great. It's June 18th already, man. June's flying by. May was a little bit of a slow month for me, but June is flying.
Oh yeah.
May was because we did so many lands back to back to back.
But wouldn't you think that makes it go faster? I don't know.
I guess you would think, but we were working so much, and it felt like our days off were really sporadic through all that. It was like, hey, here's a Monday. By the way, you have meetings tomorrow.
I personally don't want this month to go all that fast because my birthday's at the end, which then means I'm older. So, if we could just slow down June for a second.
Slow it down.
I would be okay with that. But we have a lot to talk about, of course.
How old are you going to be?
83.
Wow. Never ask a woman
Looking
how
good
old she's
for
turning.
83.
Or she'll lie to your face.
I feel like 83 is a number I don't even care all that much, but I've just committed to it at this point.
Committed to the 8-3.
Yeah, that's where I am.
Hell of a number.
Yeah.
Hell of a number to commit to.
But
Gabby's only got, 10 good years left in her to cast, right? And then 5 before you go
Stan
downhill
Lee's 95.
altogether.
I can make it. That's more than 10 years.
That's a hell of a
He's
bar
in movies all the time.
to compare
yeah,
yourself
he's
to.
still putting.
He's making cameos.
He's always challenging himself.
He's been in the most popular movies in the last decade.
Yeah.
The common denominator, man. The common denominator, Stan Lee.
Yeah, ain't that the truth, everybody? But the first thing we're going to start off with, as we always do, is console. So taking a look back this week, anything in particular y'all have in mind?
Not so much looking back for me personally, but this is a big week for the console guys. This is the LAN Qualification League. In fact, later today, is going to be that broadcast where we determine who is coming. We only elect 4 teams. These are best of 3s, so it's going to be a lot of fun.
And that's kind of one of the things last week had that feel that you get. Last week, everyone who's coming through, the first couple weeks, you tend to see the teams like the teams that we had seen who had qualified last time around. So that was the last group of people, I guess, to get pulled into it. And coming into it today, I feel like we're going to see somewhat what we expect, or at least familiar faces throughout the finals. I have no idea if we're actually going to be able to see, because the competition's gotten a lot more stiff.
Sure.
And with Xbox, we got to see a little flavor here or there, even Moji busting her way out of there. So Xbox really committing to their own identity.
Yeah, I think this is cool. This has always been a pick that has sort of swirled around console. It definitely fell off because I think there was a bug or something with 2, and I'm pretty sure that's been fixed now from what I've been told, which was her only really viable competitive legendary. And normally, obviously, it is Wonderful that plays this. That's the one that I'm looking out for, who's making it to land, but it's always good to see her, I think, come back into the scene as a whole.
And it's just one of those areas. I actually think this was the day that we were talking about how Moji hadn't been seen for a while. And so console immediately being able to pull it out. And not only Wonderful, but I think a few of the flank players pulling it out. I think
Moji,
Wonderful's is probably the one that I think is most notable, because it's been described as he plays Moji like Moji is Ruckus.
That's true.
Yeah. I think
when you think about it, it kind of looks pretty similar, but just a fun character in my opinion. I had a lot of fun playing her when she was just because I like to use abilities all the time.
Yeah.
And that Scamper was on a 2.5 second cooldown if you loadouted for it.
That loadout's perfect.
Yeah, it was mad fun. I got to be hitting something at all times, so Moji was a lot of fun for me.
Yeah, I believe we have a highlight as well. I'm Flash playing during the console series, and when we're seeing all these teams evolve, right, and we've had kind of the teams in mind that we've talked about, and everyone's about to make their last run for qualification, have there been any surprises? Anybody that's kind of jumped the bet that we haven't had in mind before?
For me personally, I'm not exactly sure, because the top talent sort of circulates around sort of the same couple of teams, groups of people. They seem like they're a little cliquey, like certain people get along with others and not so well with others as well to boot. So I think when you have something like that, it can feel like a little bit of a clique, but no one's really dethroned any of the big names per se for me in console Paladins, but you do have, guys like UND Gaming, Z-Flash here putting on a pretty good display. And if you get comfortable at the top, you can only sit there for so long before people start to come nipping at your heels.
I think that's kind of the thing that's been going through. I feel like in Europe and North America for PPL, we kind of give them tiers. I feel like console has very defined teams right now, where it's just you are first, you are second, you are third. But it's starting to get a little bit more mucky through all of those, just because Fable traded off SoldierBot and they ended up getting picked up, or SoldierBot gets picked up by Elevates, and it's just moving around, like you said, kind of clicky. But a lot of these top players pretty much always staying at the top.
Yeah. And teams are trying to make their way through qualification to get to the LAN. As we feel like we just had a LAN basically with them. It's so crazy to think that it's already almost
It was about a month ago.
Yeah, that's pretty intense.
Here's the bracket today for EU Xbox. Vex Gaming versus the Unicorns playing for their spot at LAN. We'll take a look at North American Xbox as well. Fable Elevate. That's been the big tail of the tape. Two big juggernauts. They're always there, like we said. You know, people, they're going to make strides, but for the most part, those two are pretty far out in front of the pack.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of just back and forth, I want to say, between those two teams specifically. And I remember because Elevate at HRX were the ones who were the champions, and then Fable came through, and it started out like back and forth, and Fable so far has been a little bit more consistent, but honestly, I feel like it's still a coin flip.
Well, next up, we do have the Paladins Premier League. We just finished week 3, so we're officially over halfway through the regular portion of this split. And I think some of the ways that these matches went out, taking a look at the schedule and how everything kind of trickled down, were what we expected them to be. Not all what Nick expected them to be.
Come on, I got 91. I got one less win. I got 91%. I said that though. I said this could be a week where, and very easily destroys my 100% pick rate so far, because you've got those matchups like the G2 Envy. That was the one that was the biggest letdown for me personally. I thought that was going to be an incredible matchup there. It's the first time Envy and G2 play when Envy have Rock Monkey as well as Fnatic Navi. I mean, damn, that is a true coin flip matchup. It's been going Fnatic's way online, obviously, but you know, Navi, when they're able to get these wins on lands, you have to imagine that they make this roster change hoping to improve their online performance. That was the biggest thing Phoenix was always talking about, was like, you know, when we're all here together at these events, we can control the environment, how we practice, how we play, how's everyone thinking, right? But when you're online, when, you know, these European teams are not geographically close to each other for the most part, so they really can't keep tabs on each other, can't keep each other motivated like they can at LAN. So that type of swap, I think, is what Navi were hoping to improve by adding Lazy.
I'm kind of curious to see, just because that was, I think, the biggest surprise to me out of all of this week, was seeing the top teams 3-0 their opponent that we normally see them go 4 games, 5 games with, and both of them looking relatively clean when they did it. Too. It wasn't like, oh, well, they won 4-3, 4-3, 4-3. It's like, no, they came through and they didn't really destroy you, but they stopped you from actually having that chance. Like, you don't feel like you can be a first-place team after that.
They firmly held your head under the water until the bubble stopped on that day.
Yeah.
It was pretty funny thinking how with aggro coming in the last couple days, and we're like, yeah, these are the sets that are gonna go
me, man.
so long. Yeah, expect game 5, and then those were the quickest ones. But then you had SK versus Envy that ended up going all the way to 5 games.
I know.
So, I mean, you got to give it to them for always keeping us on our toes. But I think a lot of the blast play and everything we got to see from EU, obviously Andrew Doodle doing some great things on that side. But on NA, we saw some interesting play as well, including the fact that Splice, with the roster change, I think they did better than we were expecting them to.
Yeah, did not get curb stomped, and that's kind of what I was talking about this matchup. I'm like, I don't expect them to. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't score points in these matchups this week, because you know, you see that type of thing. Especially when you lose a guy like Ozone, who was a big part of the leadership for this roster. When you lose something like that, I think a lot of teams would just kind of collapse or implode, so to speak. They don't have anyone that wants to step up here, but clearly Splice do, and they have G-Bunny. They brought him in. He had some moments that were good, some moments that were not so great as well. But overall, I think after talking to Vyro from this roster, I was pretty confident in the way that I think they'll be able to step up, have new leadership, because he seemed very confident that they were able to, you know, keep the ball rolling, so to speak.
And they looked comfortable. It was one of the things, like last week I was thinking, if they had kept Ozone, they were on this like gradual, like just staircase up. They were constantly getting better, and I was worried that this was either going to reset their progress or even put it even further back because you're bringing in someone new.
Right.
But it still looked like they took that step forward, maybe even a couple steps with how things went compared to what they could have been. So I'm actually excited to see how this roster does. Even if they come out at the end of this, I've said this for the last split for Splice as well, where it's just, even if they come out at the end with no wins, I think they are working really
That's
well.
pretty
this
likely.
is like the big learning period, I guess, for the team.
They've got SK this week, so that's got to be the one to win if they're going to win one, if they're not going to go 0-20. But you know what? I don't put that on them. They weren't on this team. You know, the organization is going to be 0-24. But as far as I'm concerned, this roster, you could even call it like 0-3, right? Because they had that big switch midseason. They're an 0-8 team right now. I'm not going to put the 0-24 on them. That was a team. That was a team effort, right? You can't do that. Can't do that on your own, bro.
But kind of mentioned it a bit before. We have our final results from our caster predictions after week 3, and for a while you were sitting there with a hefty 100%.
Yeah.
But some of the matches didn't quite go your way, so down to that 91, and Gore and I finally pulled ahead with 95%.
You did say last week, though, that you were like, this is the week that I'm going to get something wrong, because you were like, you're putting your neck out for some of those teams. I think specifically it was Navi when it came down to it, because we kind of expected, especially with the way they looked last week.
And I got to say, Gore, the things I talked about, the things I touched on, Mutu on blasters and sort of Navi just looking a little bit more flexible, that's what I was like, they were against non-Fnatic teams, that's what they were starting to run. That's what they seemed to be getting a little bit more comfortable and invested in. And then they just didn't touch it during that set against Fnatic. And I was like, well, I mean, if you're gonna do that again, then yeah, they're gonna beat you again. It's got to have to be something different, I think, to take down Fnatic.
Well, with week 3 complete, we are kicking off week 4 of the PPL split tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern. So a whole nother round of fresh matches. But we're at that point where most of the rematches coming on through. Yeah. So you're looking at the time that they first faced off within the earlier part of the summer split and seeing how much evolvement has actually happened between these teams with NIP doubleheader, SK doubleheader, a bit of a mix-up on Thursday, and then Friday as well.
It's a big week, I think, for Mousesports VP to be stepping up. Their games against Ninjas in Pajamas are winnable. This is a big change for NIP. They have Diggy Dog this week. This is the first week he will be playing. You have to imagine, obviously, this is a roster change that is going to improve them in the long term. We don't know how it's going to affect them in the short term, but he's been there for about 2 or so weeks now. I have to imagine grinding every single day with them. And the role that he's filling is not one that he's unfamiliar with, Gabby, so I don't know how much it's going to slow down NIP, if at all.
Well, then, thinking of the first match between NIP and Mousesports, we talked about Andrew Doodle and the blaster play that he can bring. Diggy Dog should be playing this week as well. Gore, how do you think they're going to fare against one another?
I mean, I'm kind of interested because, again, you're looking at Andrew Doodle, who's had weeks now, I guess, in the PPL, comfortable with his team, been there for a while.
Yeah.
Diggy Dog is a player who has been notable for months on Kanga, and he's been able to come up, a lot of that team being able to play on like the international scene, getting LAN experience against these guys. But with the way Simsalu's been playing versus how, again, 2 weeks there, going to be feeling fresh but still kind of like a first experience, I feel like Andrew Doodle, like at least like blaster to blaster, might be able to take that fight. But it's really kind of a question of, I want to say, the rest of NIP on the team.
You know, for all intents and purposes, he's being called up into a new echelon of competition that he is not used to playing in. He's not going to be used to losing. That's my biggest question for Diggy Dog, is how do you adjust to this different environment, right? To where you're not absolutely crushing everyone that stands before you in the PGS with Kanga. You have to play differently. I think you have to maybe slow down a little bit. He's going to be so used to just go, go, go. I don't know if he's going to play defense very well. I don't know what's going to happen with him because, you know, I think they're lucky the fact that Mousesports VP, these are their easiest 2 matchups. Let's just be straight up. This is, I think, 2 matchups that they can win to get his confidence going. But Doodle has been looking incredible, even on Mousesports, even on a team that gets 1, maybe 2 wins a split. This kid still finds a way to shine, and I think will put up a fight against Diggy.
Yeah, between that play that we actually saw from Andrew Doodle and Mousesports being on the downside and the struggle bus lately, do you think that having that experience though over the split and Diggy Dog, as you're saying, coming in having a whole different feel would be enough for them to thwart NIP for the first time?
I'm going to say no.
Yeah.
I'm going to immediately just throw it, just because it's one of those things that when you look at the single player, it was the same question we had coming into the split. Like, well, I was like, oh man, you have Simsalu this time. Like, is it going to be that bad? And then it's like, well, you have 4 guys that are incredibly adept at what they're doing, and then 1 guy who is really like a great player, but being put into a new environment, but they make the environment comfortable because they're all so sure of themselves.
Yeah, it's really tough. You got to look at the rest of the roster around Diggy as well. Yeah. You've got 2 Season 1 World Championships, one of them being an MVP. The other 2 guys are runners-up from that tournament. It's guys that have won. Every land that Bird and Bonker weren't winning, those 2 were winning. So they know what it is to win. This roster has high expectations. They have fallen from grace because they were up there at one point, right? Mouse has never been in that conversation, right? So I think that they return to their winning ways. I think NIP are showing strides that they're looking to do that, and I've got them in this matchup.
Well, so then, official prediction, NIP for you?
NIP.
What about you? And it really comes down to the fact that it is great, as you said, Mousesports and VP being the matchup for NIP this week. If you're going to add somebody in, that's the best that you can really hope for. So all of us, the same across that board, but as we mentioned, NIP are also facing off against Virtus Pro.
It could be a double-edged sword, though. You're right, because I have to imagine there's some nerves there for Diggy. First time playing. He's with Bird. He's staying with Bird, right? So I think that's pretty helpful. That's sort of a LAN environment, right? It's LAN outside of maybe the ping that they're getting to their games. But you have to imagine that Bird's going to be there, sitting with him, keeping him calm. They're going to be talking face-to-face, hopefully not tilting if anything starts to go wrong, because that's the big thing, right?
Yeah.
I think they are expected to win these matchups, at least from our point of view. Their point of view, they're definitely hoping to get these Ws as well if they want to stay in the running for second. Because frankly, this split, they are, I think, in the running for second. Navi have got to start winning the rest of their games if they want to stay ahead of NIP. And I think if they just keep it there, but they can't get tilted, right? If they lose that first point, if they go down 2-0, hell, if they drop a map, you got to be able to bounce back against both VP and Mousesports.
Virtus Pro is on this, I want to say on the rise with the way they've been playing. They've been looking better and better each week. But the problem is that you get these phenomenal performances where it's like, okay, cool, you pulled out a triple kill. You pull out a win on this map or this map. But it always seems to fall apart. It always seems to be the same strategy or the same kind of feel to each composition. And on certain maps, that's exactly what you need. You know, you're playing Frog Isle, you know exactly what you need. But then if you get taken to Frozen Guard, you have to change that up. And I think that's kind of where the problem comes into for me, is that they don't quite have everything on lock, and it feels like they're kind of locked into one style.
So Virtus Pro, they've shown a lot of prowess, and everyone has been commending them for their growth over time. But then what are those potential styles that you think, as Gord just mentioned, that maybe they could kind of lock into and capitalize upon?
It's about getting their power picks, right? Their Cassie is good on a couple of different players for this roster. Mary Jane stepping up on the sniper in a big, big way. And just, I think, coming together, right? When you look at that pregame interview last week with Elvin Path, the way he kind of talked about his roster, you know, it's a nationality thing. Virtus Pro, you know, a very prideful organization. I think that they do have those 5 Russian guys now. When you've got Mary Jane, right, the way he talked about him, right, he's just kind of some guy in ranked that was pretty good, right? That needs to change, right? He's amazing because is what you need to hear from your team captain. And these are his strengths. So maybe getting to know his troops a little bit better. Maybe Virtus Pro still finding that identity, whatever it may end up being. But I think that's the thing that needs to change for Virtus Pro.
Well, go ahead and lay out your predictions.
I've got NIP here again.
Same.
So, and if NIP do manage to take away these 2 matches, we mentioned how Navi have been needing to make some changes in the way they've been faring in some of these. That could be a great way to go ahead and try and put themselves in a position to capture that second
They have
spot.
to. I think these are must-win games for them.
Yeah.
It's not getting any easier.
So that's our first doubleheader of the week. The next one is SK Gaming for NA, and the first ones they're facing off against are Renegades.
Not an easy matchup here, I'll be honest. And it's gotten, I think, a little bit more difficult. The more time Renegades get with Moonchopper, the more consistent they stay, the scarier they're going to get straight up. They've been looking strong, and I think that's where I'm leaning this week.
And honestly, I'm admittedly kind of confused about how to go this week, because I'm leaning a little bit more towards Renegades, but the way SK played against Envy, even though they lost the last 3 games in their set, they looked good. And it's not easy to take games off of Envy, especially with the way things have been going for them. So I feel like this is a set that is really going to define where these 2 teams stand more than anything else. Renegades have been looking, I think, more consistent all around.
100%.
But SK, every week, they've been able to pull out a surprise for me.
And I almost want to echo what you said about Virtus Pro for SK. Like, it seems like, you know, they've got a couple of things that work for them well. They've got their map with their picks. Yeah, they're going to look great there. But it's like, you got to look great everywhere with pretty much anything in this day and age to I think have success here, and the Renegades just have had more of it, right? That's why I'm leaning that way. Moonchopper had some colossal games. His Bucks been looking one of the best in North America for sure. North American Bucks across the board have been very blech for me recently, and Moonchopper's like finally the first one that I'm actually starting to be like, okay, I actually really like him on this pick. That being said, SKF started to do a little bit of experimentation with Invoco on these blasters. I mean, Invoco on the Drogos was absolutely nuts there last week. So I think if they can get more of that rolling, keep his confidence high there, they'll be in a good spot. This should be a good set.
Keep him on Drogos.
So with all of that considered, who takes this match?
Still Renegades for me.
I still have Renegades. I think SK can make it close, but I just don't think they have what it takes to take them down yet.
So you just mentioned the fact that blaster play and having the Drogos available to them. Do you think because of the way that was played last week, though, it might have earlier prioritization as far as taking it away from SK?
I think if Renegades were watching, definitely so. And this is a pretty big pick for Moonchopper as well. So it could go either way in this set. Look for it to be picked or banned early.
So what are your thoughts on SK Gaming versus Splice?
This has got to be their win. I mean, for my money, I think if Splice are still looking solid, right, they still have a chance to potentially get their win. And everything I'm saying for SK can probably be said for Splice as well. This is going to be their easiest matchup, their biggest potential at getting that first win. And for the Splice organization, that's going to mean a hell of a lot. And I think SK need to realize that going into this, that they've got a very hungry wolf, a starving wolf even, that wants this W.
And I mean, you're looking again at a team. It's like you need to be doing your homework. You see what they did to Envy last week in the terms of SK. So it's like, okay, know who you're going up against for this. It doesn't matter. You know, later they actually are facing Envy this week. So it's just like, don't worry about them yet. Worry about SK first. Try to figure them out, and then once you can get there, then you start looking further. But it just feels like Splice again are still kind of in that area of they're getting better, but the rest of the teams have already been there.
Yeah.
So prediction-wise, did you both vie for SK in this one?
I'm still SK on this one.
I'm SK.
So Splice, I mean, they've been on the struggle
until they get a win, right? You can't vote for them until they show you that they can get a win somewhere, anywhere.
It's kind of like Gore and my approach to the Fnatic versus Navi, because it was so close. We're like, well, Fnatic has won off LAN in each scenario, so we'll go that way kind of thing. But Splice, a bit different, obviously, in this caliber, but who knows what can happen. Next off, it's Fnatic versus Mousesports. Speaking of Fnatic, they've just been dominating, particularly when you look at that match against Navi, where it always does go to Game 5, and it didn't this time around.
Yep.
That's pretty rough.
And if they're doing that to Navi, what are they doing to Mousesports? That's my question.
Yeah. This is one of those, looking at Mousesports, you know, on Tuesday against NIP and VP versus NIP, that's maybe a closer set, maybe something that can more likely go 4 or 5 games if you're looking at it. These next two should be relatively cut and dry with the way things go. Mouse, even if when they look great, Fnatic's still Fnatic.
And that's what you got to stress, right? It's nothing against Fnatic, or excuse me, Mousesports and VP, right? It's just the caliber that they're up against, right? This is Fnatic. This is some of the best in the business. Mousesports and VP would still, 360 curb stomp any of the PGS teams below them, I think, right? So they do deserve a lot of respect. Fnatic have to keep their foot to the gas here. They are currently 6-0, I believe. So a win here would basically soft clinch them for the LAN, for the event. They're only losing 1 game. I'm pretty sure they're going to clinch there with their 7-1, even if they do manage to lose. They're in a good spot here, but the way that Gara's been talking in all of his interviews, they are not looking to let up. They are looking to keep that completely untarnished online record standing.
So official prediction for this one?
FNC, baby.
Yeah, Fnatic. They're on their path to go undefeated again so far this split.
I believe Fnatic and G2 are in a position where they are just 1 set win away from securing a spot at LAN. Of course, both of them want to go.
Probably will.
Yeah, and
they
that 5 victories so far. But also in the next match, it's going to be Navi versus Virtus Pro. And Navi, despite having that, I'm sure, not feeling so good loss against Fnatic, they are still a very strong team.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, I think they're getting the win here, but I think I want to see them get the win in a certain way, and that's, with more blaster prioritization, taking things like Bomb King or Drogos, probably specifically Drogos there, because I think, Mutu looks great on it, but they're starting to look that way. They're starting to look like they have that flexibility where, all right, if we need a Bomb King here, then we've got creatives to play it. Mutu can now slot onto other things to fill in that spot as well. Mutu's now playing some more Xin, and I think Navi are starting to have all the pieces fall into place, and I think they're going to need all of those pieces. I think they're going to need absolutely everything in their arsenal to continue to defeat Fnatic at LAN, which is where they hope to make it. Again, they're not out of the woods yet, especially if NIP pick up 2 wins this week. They're going to have to continue to win out, and it might even come down to a tiebreak.
This is one of those ones. I think Virtus Pro is going to be able to take a game just because they've been looking good. And so far, like historically, for some reason, they can always get a game off Navi. But I don't think they have what it takes to get the full set. It's always that map, I guess, just area where they go. It's like you're really good here,
yeah,
and then you're okay here, and then you're just fine here. But it's just like okay and just fine aren't good enough. You have to be excellent on every map you go to, or else you just can't win a set.
Cool. So what are your predictions for this one?
Navi.
Navi.
Well, I think everything's pretty cut and dry there. And going into the next match,
are you
we're
copying
back over...
my picks, Gabby?
Am I copying?
Yeah. Are you copying
Why would I copy
picks?
the person that's losing?
Am I? So was that graphic from earlier? Was that through all 3 weeks overall? I've got the after 2 missed picks.
Yes.
I've got the worst one.
Yes.
After being literally perfect through the first couple of weeks.
But you
How
got
does that work?
2 wrong. I mean, I only got 1 wrong at one point.
So then we
I
should
guess
be
Gore-
equal, no?
No, because you got 2. I've only gotten 1 prediction wrong. I'm assuming the same as for Gore. You got 2 predictions wrong last week.
All split long.
Yeah.
Where I had 100%.
Yeah, but then you got them in the same
week 3.
week.
That was week 3, right? You haven't had 100% any of the weeks, or have you?
No, I have. There's only 1 match, and it's when Rock Monkey wasn't playing, and I didn't know it, and I predicted for Envy. That's the only time I've predicted
wrong. Week 1, I'm pretty sure. Maybe I got 1 wrong. I can't remember.
I'm going to have to check some math.
We're going to have to
Yeah, I mean, feel free to go check.
Everybody
I know,
get your calculators out.
I know where I stand in all this, so all I know is that. But anyway, going into match number 7, which is back over to NA, G2 and Renegades.
It's so easy to push her button.
I'm competitive, okay? Trying to take this win away from me.
All right, so going into our second to last match for the week, you're right. GT Renegades historically has been a pretty good one, and I think it's fun to highlight the healers for these 2 teams because they have very flexible styles. They've shown a lot of Grover, I think, between the 2, and specifically Viral. He's leaned on that heavily, and normally it would be almost the same fun conversation to have between Cuss and Viral, but it's Vex nowadays, and he's looked frankly just as good. And I think I actually really like Cuss Cutie on the Fernandos, on the frontliners who are just not afraid to die. They're such an all-in team. They're such a passionate team, one that's very fun to watch, and I think that just works so well for them here. Specifically the fact that I think that you have a guy like Vex who can step in, who has already played with this roster before. He was their 6th man back when they won their LAN. So this is a group of guys that has already known and tasted success together. Vex has only improved. He just wanted to be a starter, right? He would have played for this roster if they would have allowed him to start, but and I think that's a wise decision on his part. It's not easy to win a LAN with a team, even if it is from that coach sub role, and then go play for somebody else, right? Yeah. But Vex is like, I want to be a starter. I want to play in this league. I want to get better. I want to be valuable enough to play anywhere that I want, and I think he's put in the time and the work to kind of earn himself that now, and he's reaping the benefit.
And I think Viral, pretty much to the same note, it's one of those things, supports I think can be glanced over just because they're not like getting huge kill streaks, they're not really dying often, they're just kind of sitting in the back. But then when you get to see what some of these guys are accomplishing for their team in terms of like control and what they're providing, Viral's Maldamba is insane. It's kind of up there. I would actually put it on par with like Spunky's in terms of where he can throw out Dread Serpents, the stuns he can hit. Like the moments he saves his team is incredible to me.
Yeah, it's really those big stuns there. That's the skill ceiling. Yeah. That's why I'm pretty excited for Fury to come through because I think she has a lot of that. I think it's a lot of that, skill ceiling, outplay potential there, long distance. I'm seeing like these pyro strikes from downtown, right, that are just going to connect with someone and guarantee a kill. It's going to be really important. I think she's shaking up the meta for sure, but we'll get to that when we get to that.
So who between G2 and Renegades will take the win?
G2 for me.
I've got G2.
They've just been looking unstoppable in a lot of scenarios.
It's just, they're scary.
Even with having that switch from Cuss onto another role, it's been so seamless for them. Liking what we're seeing, guys. Liking what we're seeing. But the last match that we have is Team Envy versus Splice. And even though Envy didn't fare very well in their last matchup, I think they're still one of the top contenders.
They absolutely are, and it's funny how both regions kind of mirror each other week to week. Like sometimes it goes all 5, sometimes number 1's going to crush number 2. Why was it this week? I don't really know. I have my reasons why I think Navi didn't lose, and not to say that hard and fast, you know, they get those blaster picks, they win there, but I think that's an avenue that they need to be exploring. I don't know what the hell Envy was doing this week, man. I got to be honest with you. They looked bad. They were getting crushed. I think everything was going right for G2. And it wasn't even for lack of like this. They were doing like these crazy things to outplay them. Stonekeep is like specifically the game that comes to mind where I'm just watching these fights over and over. And I'm like, what is going on here from Envy? It's just like, you know, these late ults come in after fights are basically over that, you know, it's like those ones you watch and you're like, best case scenario, what happens here? How does this fight turn around? Evil Eye lands all, you know, 10 of his dragon punches, some of them like into Hexafires and stuff. And normally Hexafire is something that you counterplay Dragon Punch with, right? You hear him winding it up, and you start winding yours up too, and then he can't really come out into the open. But when he's pulling off stuff like that, that's where I'm like, what are you doing, Envious? That was not a great week for them.
And it was just one of those moments where it's like, especially against someone like G2, like any mistake you make against a team that is that strong is going to get punished incredibly hard.
Right.
Like, you are not going to be able to walk away from it feeling good about it. But when you go up against a team, I want to say like Splice, if you make a couple of those mistakes, it's not the end of the world for you there. But the problem is they still have those mistakes.
Right.
That's where you really have to polish it up. For me, it was a lot of like, okay, what are you trying to accomplish with this? Like, why is that being used here versus there? Why didn't you hold on to this, or why didn't you pop this a little sooner? It was a lot of just things that didn't feel very Envy to me.
And again, G2, they make the rosters change, right? You know, this has been a neck-and-neck matchup for a long time, but G2 make a roster change. Traditionally, what sets you back, it's Vex. We talked about why that's not really setting them back as much, but I think anytime you jumble and roll swap, there's a little bit of something going on there, right? But when you look at Envy, this was supposed to be their week, when they get the rock back, when they have their full strength, right? But it didn't. They looked worse than when they had the Throner.
Is there any player in particular on either of these teams that you've been most impressed with as of late?
For G2, definitely Cuss Cutie. I think that type of switch from support, I got a lot of respect for support players, but for Cuss Cutie to kind of go onto the front line and continue to kind of do well, it's hard, man. It's something he's never really done before. He flexes from time to time onto like this DPS. He played like some Kinessa a little bit back in the day. He played a little Andro here and there, but I don't think I've ever seen him on a frontliner before this split. And the fact that G2 has not only continued to have that same type of success, but with the dominance and just the ferocity that he's able to frontline, like they looked more just tenacious on the front line. Him and Dosups are literally camping spawn doors. You know, Evil Eye and bodies always look great, but I'm like, holy crap, this game is being won because of the front line. They are simply not giving the enemy team any room to breathe.
So in between Team Envy and Splice, then what's your official prediction?
I'm going to have to give it to Envy.
Yeah,
I feel like they've been
here.
playing like they've been well enough that there's no way I think Splice is going to be able to come through and upset them. They might take a couple of points that give them a little bit of shakiness, but I mean, Tolkien's been on the rise. Rock Monkey should be feeling back to his normal self by this point, so I think everything should go smoothly.
I think if you're Splice, they were playing a little bit like this in the previous week, so I like that they have sort of maybe started to uncover that diamond in the rough, so to speak. But play this how I think Kanga started to play their games later at the Masters LAN, where you've got these incredible players on this roster, specifically, you know, Ricotta, Shadow. They've looked incredible so far. I think you have to lean on your veteranship here and lean on the guys that can carry these PPL games if you want to grab these Ws.
So since we all made the same predictions across the board, if those percentages are right, that means no matter what, at the end of this week, you'll still be losing.
Nice, Gabby. Great stuff
had
there.
To
she just likes throwing you
point
down.
That
Great
out,
stuff.
You know?
I just don't see how I was 100% up until this point.
We'll do the math. Don't worry. You missed 2.
Right, but how many did you miss last? You missed 1.
I missed 1 in total.
And then none the first week?
No, I missed 1. I missed 1 in week 1
and
between G2 and Envy, and that's it.
Nice.
I'm just going to trust the math.
No arguments from
I don't
here.
even remember what I picked in week 1 at this point, but I'm assuming the percentage is right.
Well, Gore and I are on top right now. There's some other players that were on top with our top plays that we've got. The first one right off the bat, it is going to be Shadow, actually, who had a great play on Bright Marsh, it seems.
He sure did. And we'll get you right over to that. Cassie, like talking about Splice, they need to be able to lean on guys like Shadow and Ricotta. Get them power picks, things like that, so that they can take over the game like this. This is against Renegades. This is against a very, very formidable team in North America, a team that has shown the ability to take games off of just about anyone. So if they can do this, you know, they can win, right? You got to show us that you can win. A whole set hasn't happened yet, but they're showing us they can win. First, you got to win a payload, then you got to win a push, then you got to win maybe a map. Then we'll talk about a set win for you.
That was the turning point for me, I think, where I was like, okay, Splice is going to get stomped this week, to, okay, Splice is actually still here to play, and I'm excited to see. Like, this week I think should be still an improvement, but it's just they have really tough matches.
For sure.
Top play number 2, it's Invocal on the Drogos, and across the board we're talking a lot about Drogos play this week, but this was definitely one of the most talked about.
This was the perfect storm, right? SK have never had a blaster. They come out with this week against Team Envy, a team that normally just absolutely thrashes them. So I think what you have going on here is the fact that the Drogos has never really been done like this before for SKs. And because of that, you've got a team like Team Envy who's normally destroying them, not giving them any respect. Even when they pick it up, they're just kind of like, well, you know, we'll just do our thing with it. This can't be that bad, right? They don't have any hit scan. They don't have any real ways to counterplay this out of the sky, and so Invocal just goes off and abuses them for it.
It was that moment of equal parts he's playing out of his mind, and there's nothing to deal with it. And it's come down like if you have Kanessa or Strix or Leon or something to like shoot him down, then like maybe he's like not okay. Well, hey, you don't hit the 25 streak. We cut you off at like 18.
Right.
But nothing was able to take him out of this. Like Xin was their best bet, and I don't think I ever got to see him get close because it's just bam, bam, fusillade in your face.
That's what Aggro's like, how do they shut this down? I'm like, dude, they don't have anything to. I think they just have to roll over and then take this one.
Well, for our final top play in the number 1 spot, it is Shipa, who actually found a unique way to deal with Mutu.
We saw this at the mat. That's cheeky right there. Oh, did he really not have his roll up?
I guess not.
Oh, Mutu.
That's the only thing that I could...
He didn't. There's no way. I mean, look at the way he looks at this ledge, like all around me as he goes off. You know he didn't have his roll available. I mean, he was like, I really hope I land. And nope, not going to land there. And Theo did that to Spunky at the Masters land, correct? That's pretty much the same thing on Bright Marsh, like down there.
I think the one before was like kind of like you were standing on the edge and he put up the wall and it was just enough to like kind of dink you back. That was like full. Okay, well you're momentous in the air. Goodbye.
Just like trebuchet him on the map at the wall. That was awesome.
Well, it wouldn't be Esports Weekly if we didn't also have a top fail, which in this case was unlimited power on Eevee.
Oh yeah, I remember this one. Yeah, we watched this. We casted this one. We're like, yeah, that's gonna be top fail. So he basically, he jumped off that rock and then blink sword up over the wall so that when he wormholed back, his origination point was jumping off that rock, slightly off the mark there, and apparently he didn't remember. Short-term memory not with unlimited power that day.
2 feet to the right, he would have been just fine. He would have landed right on the ground, maybe been able to continue. I don't know if it changes the story of the game, maybe a little bit because there's still an Eevee there, but that's just like one of those unfortunate things. That's like my kind of Eevee play where it's just like, I don't remember where I was. I just hope it's good enough.
Eevee's hard, guys. Eevee's hard. But as per usual, we do have an interview, and this time it was with the coach of G2 Esports, Kyle. So let's hear what he had to say. Here with Kyle, once again, coach of G2 Esports. Now, I always love getting to actually speak to the coach of a team because you offer that different perspective. So within the split and some of the interesting strategies that you've brought to the table with G2, what has been your thought process while collaborating with the players themselves?
We all just kind of get in the scrim. We do our thing. If anything was to go wrong, I feel like we're all on the same page. I don't feel like there's a direct coaching method that comes from me, and I think that allows pretty much everybody to have a voice. But I feel like I am that fifth view, like over obviously like of the map, to pay attention to them. And I don't feel like there's any hard coaching. I guess that's what you're asking.
Yeah, just more was wondering if it's like collaborative, if it is a bit more like, hey, this is the drafts that we're going with.
Yeah, it's definitely. And I don't want to get that twisted. Cuss is an excellent drafter. Cuss does a lot of the drafting, and we do a lot of the input with the draft. Obviously, I have my input as well as anybody else does. But it's really collaborative. It really is. I think we all take information from all of each other. But in the end, I think, it's more of a team thing than it is just one person, talking down to somebody. So
it wasn't that long ago that you all brought out the quad DPS play. So how did you come to that composition?
this is gonna sound BM, but we honestly just wanted to do it. We were just kind of messing around. We're like, hey, I want a quad DPS here, and we've seen it work, you know, in the past, and we've tried it. We've tried it in scrims. I won't lie. And we were just kind of like, third game out, we're feeling confident, we're feeling strong. We've got the players to do it. We can all do whatever. Let's get it. You know what I mean? So we were all comfortable doing it, so we just did it. There wasn't really any thought. It was just kind of like, hey, you guys want to quad DPS here? And they're like, yeah, let's do it. So
awesome.
that was it.
Yeah, I feel like kind of wanted to ask it because I feel like that's what we were feeling was probably the case, but wanted to get confirmation. That's one thing that's really awesome about G2. You're willing to just lean into new strategies because you're feeling like it's the thing to do in that moment. And also brought things like Moji to the table and these champions that haven't played very much recently. What are your thoughts on them?
We wanted to make Moji work. We tried. I mean, you guys saw it. We tried to make him work. I think he can work. Honestly, he got fixed. Quotations. And we wanted to make him work. We gave it a shot. He's definitely viable. I'm trying to think of any other champ that is out of the pool right now. Like that's not played a lot. I don't know. I think everybody's fan favorite is still Moji. I mean, it's playable. The meta right now has not changed at all. There's no imbalances really. I don't think in any major champions. I'm probably wrong here on like one or two, but that's for the most part. I feel like, you know, you can get away with a lot of things. We've seen Tyra being pulled out. We pulled Moji out. I know other teams have pulled him out in scrims. I won't name them. But as far as that goes, I don't think there's any limits, honestly.
I think I know the answer to this question, but what team are you most worried about within the region then, and explain why?
In A?
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to say Renegades.
Oh, interesting.
100%.
So why is it Renegades?
Like I said, Renegades has proven themselves. They've gone from bare bones, I feel like, to getting themselves better. They've proven themselves in the past. I've seen them play at LAN, and we scrim them all the time. And just obviously gauging the situation between the teams that we do play, it just feels like Renegades is pulling it together faster. So.
With the performance that G2 has had so far within the regular part of this split, have you already started preparing for LAN potential?
Yeah, I do my own preparing for LAN. I kind of feel like that's my job anyway, but they don't really, they take it one step at a time, you know, one game at a time. We're always thinking about LAN, but we take care of what's in front of us first, and then we worry about LAN when it gets here, but it's cool. Essentially what we do.
So my last thing to you is just what would you like to say to the audience as we head into the rest of the PPL?
Appreciate you guys' support. Thank you so much. We're always doing the most we can to perform for you guys, the fans that we do have, and the ones that we don't. I hope you guys come over and see us. We love you guys. We'll be putting on a show for everybody, and hopefully we can pull some cool stuff out during our drafts and make it entertaining. Appreciate it.
Well, thanks, man, for joining me and talking with me here for Esports Weekly. I'm bummed that your cat didn't make an appearance. Kind of wanted to hide out, I guess, this time.
You want me to go get her? I'll go get her right now, dude.
We'll let her do her own thing, and hopefully next time maybe she'll decide to pop in for everybody. But, yeah, best of luck with everything, and talk to you later.
Hey, thank you. Hey, take it easy. Bye.
I love how he just yeets the cat out of the frame once he's done with it.
Well, she kept...
Oh, it's me, Sakyle. I'm such an animal person. All right, camera's off.
Before we actually started, like, the legit questions, she kept coming and hanging out and everything. It was like, I want to be here.
Man.
And then never came during the actual interview.
That was such
like,
a squeaky cat. Man, do
this
all
cat.
cats
I don't know if that
do
was
that?
I think that's like a kitten
That's a
thing.
kitten meow, right? That's the very high-pitched.
No, that's accurate. Oh, man. I just love animals so much, guys.
That was funny.
I love it.
That was funny.
Shifting gears a little bit, we're going to talk some meta, and our topic for today is familiar faces. It's really just about, because things have been so stable, the fact that teams have had more time to adapt to strategies that have been very prevalent.
Yeah, I mean, I think the major one that I want to look at is Zingenos, right? At the start of the spring split, and even a little bit in the summer, just barely in the summer, the Zingenos was like, oh my gosh, if you give this up, you basically lose the game, right? And nothing's really changed about either of those characters except for Genos, you know, losing a little bit of damage. So if anything, you want to make the argument that Genos should fall out of that of the order of things. But it really, he's honestly stepped up in priority. He's been a really, you know, top 3 character for a lot of different teams. But the fact that teams are just able to play around it, it's kind of an interesting balance philosophy, and I'm kind of glad that the balance team has done it, because before, you know, order of things would be, you know, that's happening, right? The pros complain about it. We do something to adjust it here at the studio after giving some feedback, right? Now, you know, we haven't done that, but things just have changed around it, right? So I think they're, you know, the players have the power to adapt a lot more than, you know, we can pull the strings from behind the scenes.
And I like it because it's kind of like that, okay, this is a little outrageous, we'll tone it down. Like Pip's getting way too many ults in a single round, we'll turn down his charge rate. But other than that, it's like, okay, well, here's the one balance change for this patch, and being able to kind of pull it back. And then you see some of the other champions that, again, as you kind of figure it out, you're like, man, Zen, Genos right now are just thrashing people. What can we do to take them down?
Right.
Like, Maeve slowly kind of crept into the meta where everyone's like, by the way, damage reduction Maeve, we can just make this work so you can't kill me because I'm either running away or I'm just too tanky for you to actually eliminate.
And that build's been in the game for since Street Justice came out, essentially. I mean, that build has been in the game for a hot minute now, but it just took Moonchopper basically, you know, trying it, bringing it out, and absolutely slaying with it. And, you know, now it's almost a permaban or a first pick type of thing. Other combinations come to mind, like Maldamba and Nara. That one wasn't really, for my money, wasn't super popular during the spring split, but during the LAN, I felt like a lot of people were leaning on that specifically, you know, even getting frustrated to the point. I remember Navi coming out and just being like frustrated with this Maldamba and Nara, the way they were just dumping damage into it, and the health bar was just like, nope, I'm not moving right now. I don't feel like it.
That one kind of feels like the safety net, right? Where it's just like, all right, we can do something maybe a little bit more risky. Or if we just get Maldamba and Inara, we're set. We know that our front line is going to be perfect. We know that our healer is going to be able to do whatever they want. And I feel like, the level of Maldamba players has kind of risen. It used to be, I want to say, like just Spunky who would come to mind with this, but I think a lot of the players now are like consistently hitting those stuns, getting these really clutch, weird angled Dread Serpents that save teammates or turn a kill around. It's just the right moment where I think he can be used for a lot.
And the way that you say safety net, it kind of makes me think, you know, you're right? Think about the difference between online games and LAN games. Yeah. LAN games, you will noticeably see teams slow it down, take a moment, be very, very safe. They both kind of like ball up on the high ground, like, what are you doing? Where are you going? Like, and they'll just do that for like a minute, minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes before anyone's really made any moves. Yeah. And you'll see like these 1 kill, maybe 2 kill point capture fights where that's where Maldamba and Nara is going to be super valued to you, because you just park her on the objective and you're good to go. Like every second that they are, you know, being sort of dodgy and not committing to you, that's where you're abusing them with that pick. That's where you're just getting free capture.
We'll have to see how things evolve over time with the meta. But next up, we've got our lightning round, which we got to do last week. So for anyone watching, the way this works, I have 5 trivia questions that are set, and then whoever answers first gets 10 points. If you do attempt to answer and you get the answer wrong, you do get minus 10 points. So
that's good to know.
That's something that now we know is officially put in place.
It's in the rule book. You know. It's in the rule book.
So the theme.
Gore, if you would.
Yeah. The theme for this week is Pally Pals, so it's basically just in competitive play.
Pally Pals?
Yeah, in competitive play with players and their champions. Just questions related to that.
Oh, okay, that's cool. Okay, I got you.
Or teams and champions, so something like that. All right, question number 1.
You should come to our single. This would be sick.
Then they can slow-mo it in the event that
yeah, exactly.
If we have to have an action replay, you can
roll
just
the replay, recorder, whatever you got to do.
So, according to past interviews at PWC, who does Phoenix claim to be his favorite champion?
Tyra.
Correct. 10 points to Nick. Question number.
That's how this goes, right? The second you know you think you can answer, you can hit it, right?
Sure. Let's go with that. Yeah, just as soon as you know.
Because teachers back in the day would be like, "Let me get out the whole question." I'm like, "That's another 4 seconds for my stupid opponent to think about what they want to say. I already know the answer."
I'm the stupid opponent. Here.
No, you're not. You're not.
I mean, you're not wrong.
I think it works in certain things, but because you don't really know how long the question is going to be and stuff, we'll just go with as soon as you.
As soon as you know the answer.
Because then if you
that's the risk, though. That's a 10-point deduction.
Yeah.
That's a 10-point deduction.
And it's like you say like blue.
That's
and
a
I'm
risk
like,
I'm willing to take.
Answer.
Buzz it in.
All right, ready for question number 2?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay.
Hit us with it.
In a past interview, who did Hecate once claim to be the best Ruckus player?
Zephyr Cloud.
Correct. All
That's
right.
a deep one. That's a question right
Yeah,
there.
that's,
My-
we're going deep.
That
I'll let
was
you have
that
that
was
one.
your you did that on the Esports Weekly website, right?
I did it. It was like not long after PwC before we
I
started.
remember that. I
Esports
watched that
Weekly.
interview.
Yeah, you watching
watch
all
that
the
interview?
interviews, Gore?
Oh.
Gabby's like, who's time to find out who's watching my content.
Gotta know, guys.
In Latigris's 470-second YouTube video at 3 minutes and 16 seconds in, what champion is featured? And we're like, what the?
Just like, guys, was I wearing my hair up or down
Yeah,
that
oh
day?
my goodness.
All right, you ready for question number 3?
All right. I love this intense music in the background.
Yeah.
too.
right?
It's just getting the blood pumping.
Question number 3, and I'll say it, the answer is a team.
Okay.
Okay. Who was the first team to run Con in competitive play?
Navi.
No. You got the score.
I was gonna say Navi. I don't know the answer.
Vegas, SK Gaming, they had their set early.
That's right.
They were the first
You're
Bidey
right.
played. So
So do I lose 10
you
for
lose
that?
10 points.
Gore doesn't lose 10 for that?
Oh,
You buzzed in
production, do you have
first.
a
You're right.
weigh in on that? Yeah, I mean,
But
I
he
think, I
also
think
bu-
Gore.
He also
Oh, it's prediction. Gore loses 10 points too? What? I think it's true. You lose 10 points. I feel like it's Gore's like saving option, and if he doesn't know it, then like shouldn't be punished.
but he buzzed
for
in.
it. Yeah.
But I buzzed in after you.
You did.
Yeah, so I think you lose 10 points if you voluntarily answer. Gore didn't voluntarily slam down, so therefore.
I'm happy I
disabled
didn't get it
points.
because I was.
Didn't
I was
volunteer.
gonna-
Who
I was
slammed
gonna
his
be
hand down?
Oh,
Was that an
that's true.
involuntary slam?
No, I slammed.
Did you have a twitch?
I was just late.
Okay, if you end up losing by 10 or something, we'll revisit the situation. How about that? Or
No, I
you're
got
up
the
10
official
right now.
admin ruling.
I
I have
lost-
not lost
Oh
10
my
points. I need
gosh.
Rude to come in here
We're-
right now.
I lost
we're
20
just playing
points.
around, yeah,
I lost
yeah,
20
because
points for that. That's
You
rough,
lost
dude.
10 points. You didn't lose.
Didn't I get 3 questions right?
No,
That was question number 3.
Oh, wow.
What is up with your math ability today?
I thought I was further out in front than I was.
Anyway, all right. Question number 4. Here we go. During the fall LAN, against what team did Rubu achieve the Ruckus pentakill?
Oh, against.
That's why you take the risk.
You-
Why not?
Your thing messed with me. Oh, it was
I'm
against
gonna start.
Gangstars.
I'm gonna start.
Gangstars.
Oh man, he
It
even
was
gets it,
Gangstars.
dude.
Yeah. All right. You
I
got
casted that
saved
game.
in
That's
that
why
one.
I was like, I know this because I was there.
Yeah, and I went and rewatched it last night too to make sure. I was like, it was Kickstars, right? So it was your voice. So
You
then I heard
goofed
it.
me.
I'm gonna start pump
I
faking
was
you.
close.
So it's actually it's tied up right now. So
Let's
whoever
get it.
wins this one wins today. Question number 5. In that same set, Rock Monkey achieved a 21 streak, resulting in a full charged enemy ult on what champion?
Shaolin.
Shaolin.
Well, so wait, was the question he was which streak or who got the full
So
ult?
it's streak, because I
Okay.
mean, yeah. So
I
like
was just trying to undercut you so
He
I could
killed
come
it.
in.
He killed the Makoa
Killed Makoa.
to get a heat haze back.
No,
Or no,
Makoa
Makoa killed him
to
to
get
get
the
his
Rage.
ancient rage back. Gotcha.
narrowly.
worried there.
Narrowly. Yeah. Because if you look,
Good
you
question.
Got the
Just say
commas and
Makoa, so
everything.
Good questions. High five for you. I'm proud of you.
You like
Those are
them.
some good ones.
It's fun. We're learning the
She
rules
took us
as we
back.
go.
That's almost a year ago that
Yeah.
those last two. Man, goodness gracious.
Well,
Gore was
I
barely.
got really lucky
Gore
on that
was,
one.
you know, he was a little baby
I was sitting
caster
there
back
like,
then. Can I get a phone a friend?
I don't know, maybe we'll evolve at one point to where we get to that level. But I think they need a breather after the intensity of that lightning round. So let's check out some memes.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Here we go.
Oh no, wait. It's all leading up to one big culmination.
The big old event, the big old booty, the big old booty, the big old booty. They kind of do. do, man. You look like you're in that skit where somebody's just got their arms like behind you.
See now what I wanted to say about this today.
We'll use those hands to talk about some barrack.
5, 4,
You are not welcome.
Ah! That's a war face! Now let me see your war face! Ah!
Goal just bashed in against the wall, blood splattered everywhere in the rated M version of Paladins.
Jello.
Yes. Realm jelly.
Realm jellies.
Let me see that realm jelly.
Turn out, you open her jacket pocket, and there's a jelly donut inside. It's not
My breakfast.
My breakfast. Oh, man. You never know what's in that armor.
the payload. Stop the payload.
Oh, man.
I think my favorite part is the fact that at this point in time, you're dancing. Evan just seems like unfazed. the
Normally he
entire
joins
time.
me, but
Just an
Not
everyday
that.
occurrence,
that
I
was
guess.
just not. That was not a day.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
He was too busy. He was looking forward to E3 at that point. He's just like, man,
Oh.
I can't dance with this guy.
The Majora's Mask head bobble. That was my favorite part, hands down.
I was surprised because I think it was this last week. Me and you at one point were like going hard on a dance, and I was surprised to
Oh,
not see that. That's what I
yeah.
thought when I said, "Oh no," going into that. That's what I was thinking of.
Getting
Oh,
really
boy.
into it at some points. Oh boy. Maybe just he didn't get to that when he was going through all the stuff to meme, guys. That's
It's always
what
next
saved
week,
us.
guys.
I was
It's
gonna
always
say,
next
there's-
week.
we just
Always
fuel him
next
with
week.
content.
Don't-
We were worried about the week-to-week videos, but
Don't
Yeah.
count your chickens.
Well, one of the last things to talk about here is Paladins Global Series. This is the week where we find out who's coming to land from each region.
Yep, that's the most exciting part about it, right? You know, you've got all these teams showing up, and hopefully we see some new faces around the block. But in terms of the space stations and the burritos and even the Kangas at this point, I'll be curious to see who steps in, plays for Diggy Dog. But I don't see those guys getting upset. I don't think there's anyone necessarily close. I think LATAM actually gets fairly competitive. Just Burrito are so good. But those, that's the second, third, fourth, even fifth place teams sometimes show up in that region.
I'm kind of curious about NAEU because I feel like both of those regions have kind of been upset from teams being kind of picked up where it comes down to the fact that it's like, okay, well, you now lost Mary Jane on your team in CIS, or Splice no longer has their toxicity team. There's a new toxicity team in there. So there's a lot more, I just want to say bounce around for these teams, a lot more room to actually get
power
to the top.
vacuums and such.
Yep. And as we have went through the weekend, being that we will know the qualifying teams after this week, are there any teams that have surprised you that you think might thwart our previous LAN representatives from the regions?
I mean, it's got to be an NA or probably EU or even maybe CIS. But like I said, I don't see anyone, to be honest with you, getting rid of that Brazil, that LATAM, that Australian region. Maybe in SCA. I'm
kind of looking at CIS. Last week we actually got to see MTZ has now created a team for that region. So Ovum has Armada, and now MTZ has Euphoria.
They went for the 12-0.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious to see how those two, if they end up against each other, how that one rolls out. But EU, Team Cryptic was a team that was like just rolling through phases until eventually Blazing Asars was the one keeping them down. They've been losing a lot lately. Blazing Asars has kind of been on that like second, third place spot. So I'm curious as to who's going to actually be able to take that spot.
There's some regions you look at Burrito and you expect them to qualify to come here because of how good they are, but there are the other regions where it was kind of a surprise who ended up visiting us during the last LAN. But it's nice to know that by the end of Friday, we will actually have that information of which PGS teams will be joining us here in Alpharetta. This is our schedule for the rest of the week. We do have some console action later on today, and then our PGS and PPL broadcasts Tuesdays through Friday. Any day in particular, knowing what matches are on each of them that you're looking forward to?
I don't know. Let me look through here again.
Today. I like the console guys.
There you go.
Yes.
Let's elect some console representatives. G2 Renegades, I think, could be a really good one, and then I'm also excited for SK Splice.
Yeah. Lots to look forward to, everybody.
Mostly NA action this week.
Yeah, lots. Well, thanks for joining us here in Esports Weekly. We are about to head into week 4 of the PPL, as well as finishing off the phase in some of our other leagues. We'll catch you again here at 3 p.m. Eastern for our console series, so keep it locked and see you then.